many people watch the videos after the event.
Okay.
Tito, I have to talk to you about ERDFI. Okay,
What
please.
what about
In relation to the involvement of your our faculty and alumni in the Pristine program of the DTI.
that's good. Okay, let's
Okay.
let's discuss, Giselle.
Yes, please.
But our focus is local location
Yes.
specific projects,
Of course.
not the big national, because
Absolutely.
nothing happens there.
I know what you mean.
Nothing happens there.
Yeah.
I think all of us,
Yeah. Sabi
Alvin,
ko nga, let's
myself,
make
yeah.
national irrelevant. Just work on the
Well,
grassroots.
cross-cutting is also important. Okay, I will now, we will end our private discussion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another fireside chat in the PAASE for Philippine Innovation Series. I'm Gisela Concepcion of PAASE, former president of PAASE, and also I serve currently as executive member of the National Innovation Council. And today we're going to have a very special feature on water. Water, which we know is one of the basic needs of any population or of society, aside from food and energy. So I had the the opportunity to get to our speaker today uh, s- through another innovator. His name is Carlos uh, Delantar, and he will be our guest sometime in January, February. But today, Carlos said that we should feature Jenica Dizon Mountford, who is the country director of Waves for Water Philippines, to talk to us about ripples of innovation, Waves for Water's quest for clean water access. Thank you, everyone, for being with us today. This event is recorded, so let your friends and colleagues know that you can watch the recording on our website, the PASA website, to be posted a few days after this event. So now I would like to yield the floor to my co-host, Dr. Alvin Colaba of De La Salle University, a distinguished professor, professor of mechanical engineering, and past president of PASE and current vice president of the National Academy of Science and Technology, or NAST. Alvin?
Well, thank you. Good morning, Admission Gisela Concepcion. Hello, everyone. Konnichiwa. I'm actually in Tokyo. I'm freezing here. Yes, so anyway, thank you very much. And yes, we are now in our 15th edition of our Fireside chat on Philippine, innovation. And as mentioned by Giselle, we have another interesting topic, to discuss this morning and of course evening in some parts of the world. Our distinguished resource person is a fine arts graduate majoring in information design at Ateneo de Manila University. She also obtained her master's in water and sanitation for development as a Marshall Papworth Foundation Scholar in the United Kingdom. When she was at the Loyola schools, she received that award for leadership and service as most outstanding individual. Of course, she also teaches part-time at the same university. In 2016, she was conferred the Gawad ng Kaunlaran Medal by the Armed Forces of the Philippines, the second highest distinction presented to civilians and government officials for their involvement in community building outside of work. Our resource person is also a PADI certified rescue diver and also a certified Vinyasa yoga teacher. But of course, our interest in her today is really very much related to the ripples of innovation that she's going to talk about, particularly in water. That is precisely why she is currently the country director of Waves for Water Philippines, a humanitarian aid organization focused on providing clean water access to underserved communities. Of course, he has some prior work related to tourism, corporate sustainability, and environmental policy. Ladies and gentlemen, let us give a warm welcome to Miss Jenica Dizon Mountford. Jenica, the floor is yours. Good morning.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you for the kind introduction. Let me just share my screen quickly.
Go ahead.
All right. Okay. Is the screen sharing? I think, yes. Can I get confirmation that everybody can just see the screen?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Clear.
Loud and
Thank
clear.
you.
Great.
Great. Thank you, and good morning and good evening for those who are listening from other parts of the world. I'm Jenica, and I'm here to talk about Waves for Water. But before we zoom into what we do as an organization, I'd like to quickly backtrack and really just talk about the context of WASH in the world and why access to clean water is important. So I'm sure we're all well aware of what the Sustainable Development Goals are. You have all these 17 goals that we should be on track for, but unfortunately we aren't, and there's significant delays and challenges that were encountered, and setbacks actually that were encountered in the pandemic. But these 17 goals essentially were slated to be achieved by countries who agreed to it in the UN by 2030. While access to clean water directly relates to SDG 6, we do believe that SDG 6, clean water and sanitation, is foundational to achieving all the other sustainable development goals. If you look at it, you have to look at, if you look at the other indicators, other goals, you can't achieve zero poverty if you don't have access to clean water. Actually, according to also to the UN, one of the indicators of extreme poverty is a lack of access to safe water and safe sanitation facilities. So you can't have access to clean water, people always getting sick, not being able to work. And so poverty will become a vicious cycle for them if they don't have something so basic to them. When you talk about hunger and nutrition, it's hard to think about healthy food, and access to clean water is paramount to nutritious food. So our bodies are made of 60% water. You can survive for longer without food, but just a couple of days without water. Good health. So really having access to clean water, as I mentioned, saves people time and money that would have gone to hospital bills, and also in terms of productivity. Education, kids don't have to excuse themselves from school because of poor health. Also gender equality. So women and girls are disproportionately affected by the clean water crisis, primarily because they're the ones who bear the brunt of the responsibility for fetching water for their household. So according also to the UN, globally, on a daily basis, there's at least 200 million hours that's lost to just collecting water. So that could either be used for school, for work, for play, and other more productive use of time in general. And then you look at responsible consumption and production. So when you think about water conservation and our use of water, it's not just about, you know, our household use or how much we drink, but really also as an input in a lot of the products that we use and the food that we eat. And then climate action, we'll talk about how water really is the center of climate change and climate action in general. And then peace and justice. So we can see now the increasing weaponization of water. You can easily see that in the Palestine-Israeli conflict, where water was shut off deliberately when it's a basic human right and it's considered a war crime to do so. So water has been the center of a lot of conflict in a lot of parts of the world. And so when you think about water, you see how it's so integral, but also at the same time, also quite very controversial in some sense, that what you think would be so basic, what everybody should have access to, isn't actually the reality in the world. So when we speak about climate change, it is primarily manifested in water. Either you have too much of it or too little, and either way, you damage infrastructure, especially during flooding, but also food security, agriculture. You have too much or too little water, then your palayans, you know, whatever crops you've planted can either get inundated by water or dried out due to your El Nino, the El Nino phenomenon. And then you go to this. So globally, it's 1 in 4 people who don't have access to safe drinking water. What that means is that not necessarily people don't have access to water, but safe water sources are a huge issue. And this photo is typical of the many communities that we work with. So this photo was taken in Quirino, in Nagtipunan, and you can see here that it was recently damaged or ravaged by a typhoon. So this was back in 2016. I took this photo, and on the right is their Agta chieftain showing to me their damaged water source. So what they would typically have in a community is just a hose pipe that taps a spring upland in the mountains. And this hose pipe is the same pipe that goes downstream. So as the pipe goes down, it gets, it's sort of just like a puzzle, like different hose pipes connect, it branches out for houses that actually have capacity to have their own makeshift connection for their homes. But literally this stream downstream near the homes is the same water source people use for everything. So that's cooking, that's for cleaning, bathing, doing their laundry, and also unfortunately for drinking. There's also poor sanitation, no proper sanitation toilet facilities in the area. So even if they don't directly defecate in the stream or in the water source, when floods come rushing or even just light rains, everything just trickles down into the same waterway. And so in the country, in the Philippines, it's still 1 in 10 people who don't have access to improved water sources. And so this leads to this issue. Diarrhea is still a leading cause of death in the country. You know, some of us may have at some point have had LBM, have had diarrhea, but it never occurred to us, it would never cross our mind to actually die from it. But it's still a leading cause of death in the country. It's still, but also easily preventable. But you see an uptick of cases of deaths and cases when the monsoon season hits. So you had over 100 cases during Odette, and then also when there were monsoon rains in Quezon. So a lot of water sources, unimproved water sources that our Dumagat brothers and sisters were relying on were contaminated. And this led to five deaths in their village. So when you look at how disproportionate the crisis is, it primarily affects those with unimproved or those without water infrastructure. And then another compounding issue that we have in the country is that the country is full of hazards. So because of our geographic location and where we're sited in the Pacific Ring of Fire, you have, there's typically tsunami warnings, a lot of waves. We're an archipelago, typhoons, you have erosion and then sea level rise. You couple this with significant exposure, primarily because of land use planning and poor implementation of policies. Even if we had land use plans, there are a lot of communities and infrastructure located along coastal and low-lying areas and in areas with a lot of hazards. So you have hazard maps, but unfortunately, you still have villages and high-rises getting built on fault lines. And so this is what you compound and what makes people so much more vulnerable. So poverty is a huge indicator, a huge factor in this, but also in terms of their level of exposure, depending on where they're sited geographically. And so when you look at this is really what defines the risk. And water is a significant determinant of resilience or their level of risk, the level of risk of individuals or communities who would get easily affected. So disasters are a combination of your hazard, vulnerability, and exposure. So not all typhoons will become, disaster. And in our case, we don't always deploy disaster response initiatives for every typhoon because it really depends a lot on the combination of exposure, vulnerability. And then you look at threats, there are other threats that challenge water security in the country. You have increasing water demand due to a combination of factors. And then because of increasing water demand and competing water uses, you have water quality challenges as well. There's increasing groundwater and surface water pollution, and then the changing climate. So extreme weather events and compounded also by deteriorating watersheds we don't have enough anymore, also are a threat to our water security. And then when you look at the community level, how often threats that can also easily be addressed are also an issue because of, in some ways, a lack of understanding of how everything is connected and really just the bigger picture. So these are some of the photos, educational materials that we show in communities to just really illustrate that because of competing uses, what would have been maybe a relatively clean water source that comes from the mountains can easily get contaminated as it flows downstream and passes through different industries, households, and humans who use it for a variety of reasons. Even also as simple as where they site their toilet is something that is part of how we educate and work with communities because the siting of toilets is so crucial to protecting also their water supply. And then when you zoom out a bit and look at regulation challenges in the country, you see that there's almost more than 20 national government agencies that have some sort of responsibility or share some responsibility regarding water. So there's really a fragmented institutional setup. There's no singular repository of data, and then there's just a lot of overlaps as well in terms of implementation of integrated water resource management at the local and national level. So there's been a lot of talks about creating a Department of Water. This was, I think, still back in the Pinoy administration. I think in the first son of our current president, now PBBM, there was mention of creating at least a water resource management office in the DNR. So we are we're very encouraged, and we hope that this will really come into fruition, because there really is a need to integrate all the different functions of different government agencies that work towards water. And when you zoom, so this is really the general landscape that Waves for Water works in, but what do we focus on specifically? So in the country, if you're familiar, we have different water supply levels. So our government, in terms of providing water supply, currently has 3 water supply levels. So that's level 1, level 2, and 3. But in some of the areas we work with, we actually call direct surface water source dependence level 0, because your surface water really is your rivers, your streams, yung mga ilog, sapa. These really are your surface water sources that are highly susceptible to contamination. So level 1 is your unimproved supply system. This is your dug well, your hand dug well, your spring, your hand pumps, or your pozo. Often these hand pumps are constructed like what else shown in the next photo. These hand pumps are constructed with minimum standards. They're shallow, there's no apron, there's no proper canal or concrete protection. And so this really becomes easily contaminated. You transition to a level 2 or a communal tap stand when you have taps. So you have communal faucets that people line up for. It's not per household, but it's shared by, say, 10 to 15 households. And you transition to an unimproved to an improved source or a basic source when the round trip for water collection does not take you more than 30 minutes in a day. But this is not often the case, because even if a water source is close to you, if it's not, a few steps away from you in your home, you end up having to collect and fetch water multiple times a day. That significantly impedes productivity. And also in some cases, there are other parts of the world that where it's reported that women and children suffer physical ailments. So significant neck and back pains depending on where or how they carry their water supply. Level 3 is what I assume we all have. So this is centralized water infrastructure, primarily in cities. We have our own piped-in water connections. Water supply is almost always available and easily accessible. So it's readily available 24/7 whenever we need it. It's a few steps away from us. But even when water infrastructure or water work systems or your water districts are available in some other areas, more rural or in the province, not everybody has the disposable income to actually get connected. So on average, it ranges to 5,000 to 7,000 pesos to get connected. And then also, it's been proven by studies that if the water is closer to you or it's a piped-in water connection, you end up using more. And so even if they get or are able to get connected, they're also unfortunately not able to keep up with the monthly bill. So this is really the challenges that most of the communities that we work with face. And really, when you transition to a safely managed categorized source, it means that it's, as I mentioned, easily accessible, available when needed, and also free from contamination. But unfortunately, as I mentioned, this is not the case. These are some photos of the water sources that are available in communities that we work with. So here you see a hand pump. So I think the communities expect us to experience significant also change in the groundwater and the ground level. You can see there already the actual casing of the hand pump, and they've just had to do and use makeshift bamboo to extend the pipe. But then nearby, they have their alagang baboy They have their pigs and other animals in the area. There's no concrete apron, there's no concrete canal for water to flow. So all these just contribute to an increased level of contamination for the water supply source that they rely on. Here you also have a lady, this was in Palawan, and she was fetching water in this river. So it's good. It's still manual in nature. She has to do this by hand, really literally dip the gallon container in the water. And she has help. So she has help from her carabao, but then this carabao is also in the same water source that she's fetching from. So, she said that, so we told her, but then she said, no, she's just fetching from the other side. But really, also people using the same water source upstream are potentially contaminating the same water source that she's relying on. You also see here in this photo, it's women and girls who are carrying and fetching water for their household. This was taken in Pampanga. So sometimes when there are no hand pumps in the area, no wells nearby, people have to walk long distances. And we compare that to generally the convenience that we have of always having water a few steps away from us. It's something that can easily really take a back seat in our consciousness, that there's so many other communities, so many other areas in the country that don't have the same. Unfortunately, it's a luxury. So women, girls, they often have to do and deal with chores relating to water, from fetching, laundry, etc. So if water sources were actually closer to them, they could have more time for themselves to do other things. And these things take away just from school and play. So for us at Waves for Water, we identify needs by looking at the condition of water source, so what their water supply levels are. There are cases of waterborne diseases, their disaster vulnerability. We talked about the hazard, risk, and exposure factors. And then we look at the presence of a community champion. So because we take a capacity building and technology transfer approach, we have to ensure that there's buy-in from the communities, that they acknowledge the same issues that we see in their community, and that they also agree that the solutions we propose are a match, are a fit for them, and that they're willing to take ownership of it. We also want to look into the average amount of money spent on buying water, and obviously the number of households affected to determine the size of the project. But even if we're not living in these same areas without water infrastructure, we are likely to have experienced the increasing water demand in the country. And while there's centralized water supply, in Metro Manila, for example, water supply challenges have been experienced by people in the city because of a shortage. I think this was back, especially in 2018, where water supply had to be rotated because of the significant change in dam levels. So this is the landscape that Waves for Water works in, and really our goal is to provide access to clean water to everybody who needs it. I'll talk about the solutions in a bit, but we're a global nonprofit founded in the US by a pro surfer. This is him, John Rose, and who happened to be in Indonesia back when the 2009 Sumatra earthquake struck. So he had a couple of filters with him, which I'll show in a bit, the latest model. And he saw just how easily it could be deployed in contexts where there's infrastructure damage in water, electricity, and that access to clean water was an immediate need, not just for drinking, but also for cleaning wounds, for medical needs, and first responding. Globally, we've done projects in 48 countries and implemented over 155,000 systems. And we've actually just celebrated our 10th year anniversary in the Philippines, which is the same time as when Haiyan struck. So that was when local presence in the Philippines started, when our global office responded to Haiyan. And so that's when Philippine operations began. Our goal really is to get access to clean water to everybody who needs it, not just because people are thirsty, but really because it contributes towards individual and community advancement. So when you have your health, when you have your basic human right afforded to you, there's so many more opportunities that you can pursue. And we take a help the helpers approach. So this means that we implement with our volunteer networks nationwide and train them. So we capacitate them, train them by how to use the technologies that we deploy for them to be able to maximize it in their own communities. Our solutions come in these forms. So we have the filters, the clean water systems, which I'll demo in a bit, rainwater catchments. So we build rainwater harvesting systems that help augment freshwater storage capacity of communities, especially island areas where they actually have to travel to the mainland to get fresh water sometimes. And then we promote hygiene. So it's really a wash system approach, water sanitation and hygiene, where it's not just access to clean water, but you have to reinforce behaviors that help improve their water supply, their use of water. And also we're deploying and piloting sanitation initiatives, which I'll talk about in a bit. But really the backbone of the programs that we do is this small filter. So this filter is just, okay, maybe I'll, oh, I disappear. Okay, here, this is a good view. This is a filter that's just the size of your palm, but it has a 1,000,000-gallon capacity, and it's able to provide access to clean water for at least 5 years, sometimes 10, depending on usage and also maintenance of the household individual or caretaker. And it's just usually set up in a bucket. So we use buckets primarily because they're easy to transport, and also because it's a household item that's not intimidating. Everybody's fairly familiar with your timba, and especially in areas that haven't had formal education, it's easy for them to set it up and understand. And we also train them to it. The filter is able, so it's a hollow fiber membrane filter that's 0.1 micron absolute. So bacteria, protozoa that cause your typical waterborne diseases aren't able to pass through. Here's a quick video of, turbid water just coming out, not just clear, but also clean. So, oh, sorry. So there, you can see here that really what comes out is already potable water. So especially in areas that have been significantly flooded or experienced flooding and high turbidity in their water sources, because the soil, the ground, even if it's groundwater sources, nakakawkaw yung lupa, and so it causes their water sources to be heavily sedimented and turbid. And also you don't know what bacteria else is nahalo and mixed into their water source. It's easily deployable and easy to use because you don't need electricity, batteries, it's just gravity fed. And I'll quickly show later how it works. Our programs come in 3 forms. Primarily, our roots are really in disaster response, but we believe that one of the greatest disasters really is that there are communities without access to clean water. This issue is only, disasters only exacerbate and further highlight an existing need, but we have needs-based projects because, an existing need already pre-exists. Community development initiatives are those that are complementing WASH solutions, and we also work with other organizations that have other strengths as well. Just some of the photos of activities and projects that we've done throughout the years in terms of disaster response. Community development initiatives with our CSR partners. So primarily our funding stream is from corporate social responsibility projects, companies that commit to us long-term for us to be able to do projects for extended periods of time in selected communities. So we've partnered with Discovery Hospitality, the group of hotels, Land Bank, Canva, H&M. So if you shop at their stores and they charge you 2 pesos per paper bag, those paper bag charges actually go to Waves for Water and help fund clean water projects. We also serve as a community relations partner with the military, the Armed Forces of the Philippines, and with their support, we've been able to visit really the most remote areas of the country, from the country's northernmost island of Mavulis to southernmost in Tawi-Tawi, Panguan Island, and other areas that would have been hard for us to reach without their logistics support. As I mentioned, the technology, the infrastructure needs to be further reinforced by the software or the behavior change that needs to happen for the technology to be fully adopted and also be incorporated as a daily habit. And this is where the WASH education comes in. We also reinforce hygiene primarily through the deployment of portable hand washing stations. So for Waves for Water, most of our solutions is really medium term, but immediate. So this means that we don't really do infrastructure construction. This is, government's responsibility. This is in the local government code mandated. But in the meantime, that people or communities don't have enough funding for centralized water infrastructure, what do you do in the meantime, in the medium term, where people are actually getting sick from unimproved water sources? So another technology that we deploy are these water efficient portable hand washing stations. So instead of your permanent hand washing facilities in schools, which are typically located at the ground floor, they're usually group hand washing facilities. And then kids from like your third floor, second floor actually have to go down to the first floor to wash their hands. Another issue is that even if they have, say, restrooms in their floor levels, water pressure is also sometimes really poor. So in water scarce or water stressed areas, these portable hand washing stations are very useful because you only need 17 liters. It catches your gray water after and then allows for 50 to 70 uses. So we want hand washing to be easily within the reach of your students, your future doctors, your future leaders. And a way to build that behavior is by making sure that these hand washing stations are as close to them as possible. And they're not makeshift. They're also low flow. So if you can see, it's a specific kind of shower head or faucet. So it's not your typical gripo that, is high water pressure and uses a lot of water, but this really just allows you to wet the surface of your hand, soap it, and then wash it with, minimal water use. And you can place it anywhere. It's just semi-permanent. Another technology or innovation that we've been deploying is helping address sanitation. So sanitation, unfortunately, has taken a significant backseat because it's more complex than building or providing water supply because you need land. So, but if you have a toilet, you have to think it for at least 9 reasons because ultimately it helps maintain dignity. So there's a lot of areas in the country that still unfortunately practice open defecation, and it's because of a lack of toilet facilities that are actually appropriate for them and their situation. So what we've been deploying and piloting now are these toilets. So they're different configurations. So you have a bowl or you have a pan depending on cultural practices. So this is something we also take into consideration. If you're looking into providing or like the human rights-based approach of providing wash solutions, you have to look at, cultural sensitivity. Are they sitting, do they like to sit or do they like to squat? Do they like to wash or do they like to wipe? So these are things you need to take into consideration. But what makes these toilet bowls or pans unique is that they're also water efficient. And typically in communities, you have your pour flush toilet. I think we've all encountered this. There's no water closet. It's literally just a bowl. And then sometimes you have to use a whole timba, especially if you do number 2. You have to use a whole, 15, 20-liter bucket to flush it. And that means a lot of water is in some ways wasted. Water that's also so hard for communities to fetch. So even if you build toilets, if they don't have stable water supply, they end up not using the toilet because it's magastos na tubig. So what makes these unique is that it has a trapdoor system. So similar to your toilets in airplanes, they have like a flap. This one has a trapdoor system that is that obviously eliminates the waste right away. And then you just need half a liter of water to flush because of the counterweight system. So it's really efficient for communities, easy to transport to. Often you use your ceramic porcelain toilets that are so heavy. Imagine transporting this in your upland communities or your island coastal communities. It's tough. But these are made from durable plastic. They're hard grade and, relatively so much lighter than your typical toilet. So this is another sanitation innovation that we've been piloting as because it's started to manufacture locally as well. So in terms of our impact, we've done projects. We have presence in all 82 provinces of the country and implemented over 23,000 systems, built over 106 rainwater catchments, and impacted the lives of at least 2 million Filipinos. What makes us as an organization unique is that we try and aim to serve as the platform for anybody, whether you're an individual, you're an organization, you're a company, you're a group of friends who want to further the cause of clean water, everybody has room to contribute towards that because it's everybody's business. And so at Waves for Water, we strive to serve as a platform where people can plug in more purpose to things they're already passionate about. And this is a testament to just the diversity of brands and companies and groups of people that we've worked with, from local companies to international brands that have local presence in the country. So I think, most of us have our own advocacy or in the academe, something that we're, specializing in. Really, our goal is to serve as, a bridge towards a gap, an existing need that we see. And for us, it's water and sanitation services because they need to fulfill these indicators. So in the human rights-based approach framework, you have water that should always be available, accessible, have good quality, be acceptable and affordable. Because ultimately at Waves for Water, we believe that water is a multiplier for resilience. If you have health and sanitation, then that means you can maintain good health, prevent waterborne disease. If you have water, then you have food security and nutrition and agriculture. You have livelihood and economic stability, and then community cohesion. A lot of water sources are actually are places of social interaction, especially for women. So these serve as communal points and focal points for collective action in terms of resilience. You can address education issues, also disaster preparedness when it's readily available. So really, it's not just a basic necessity, a basic human right, but really helps build resilient individuals and communities. And just really a quick recap of what, the human rights-based approach to water means. Available means it's 24/7 there. Accessible means the location is not hard to get to, as opposed to this photo. So this is a tubod, a spring. They didn't even have proper piped-in systems because this is an upland community in Brooks Point. What they did was, cut the bamboo in half, use that as a pipe and stick it into a portion of a hill or in the mountain. And then that's what they're fetching water from. And you can see the kind of quality of water that they're able to get, but this is the water that they have to deal with. And so you have quality and safety issues, especially if it's going to be used for drinking. And so also you look into acceptability. Some solutions, unfortunately, aren't as acceptable, especially for IP areas. You have aqua tabs, for example, so chlorine tablets that unfortunately really significantly alter the taste and the smell of water. So communities are less likely to use it, even if it makes their water safe, because the change in the taste and the smell is so significant for them, and they don't like to drink the water anymore. We also talk about acceptability of your sanitation solutions, thinking about, cultural practices. And then ultimately, water has to be affordable. So even if it's a basic human right, unfortunately, even if ideally it's free, it's hard to make it free because you have to pay for the water supply, the treatment, the service, and the delivery. So water as a resource definitely should be free, but because it's treated, it's brought to our households, it just has to not exceed 3% of household income. But some areas definitely pay so much more because they, have to fetch water from the mainland or end up having to buy water from your water cartels or those who have their own trucks and then sell to communities for such a high markup. So ultimately at Waves for Water, we strive to put a face to the statistics. We talked about 1 in 10, 1 in 4, and sometimes 24 million don't have sanitation. It's so hard to grasp what that actually looks like. So we put the premium in storytelling. If you can look us up on Instagram, we're there more, but we're launching Facebook soon, and we have a global Facebook account. So our goal really is to tell stories like, and share what we do, because it's so easy for it to take a back seat in the general consciousness of people who have easy access to water. Part of also what we do is we measure impact. We have a GIS-based GIS app, and what we want to do is measure filter utilization rate, how much, from a significant implementation, for example, how many are still using the filters after a certain period of time. Is there a decrease in cases of waterborne diseases? What kind of savings do they have from buying less vended water or medical expenses? Are they experiencing increased productivity in terms of time savings from fetching water or reduced sick days, also leads towards increased school attendance. So really access to clean water is that game changer that allows for such a huge ripple effect in communities that we work with. And then individually, there's things that we can do. Water conservation isn't just about, brushing our teeth and using a glass of water instead of letting the faucet run or taking quicker showers. There's so much more that we can do in terms of reducing our water footprint. So a lot of talk has been about carbon footprint, but also in terms of how we use water, there's things that we can do to be more intentional about conservation by looking at, for example, the food that we like. If we're into steak, that takes so much more water. If we like to buy a new phone every year, in terms of production for jeans, if you like your new pantalon, it costs so much more water to buy to produce new ones because of the whole cotton production, washing, dyeing process. So there's a lot of things that we can consider, try to be more mindful about when we in the food that we eat and the products that we use. So we want to encourage reuse, retrofitting, so household fixtures, low flow shower heads, using gray water when possible. So things that we can do really in terms of doing our part. Now I'll quickly just show a video of one of our projects that are really close to my heart, and really it was one of the most memorable for me. This is in Brooks Point, Palawan. Let me just reshare screen again to make sure that I share sound. And then I'll do a quick demonstration of how the filter works, and then I think we can open the floor for questions. But here's the video. So a while ago, we said that 1 in 10 people don't have access to improved water sources, but that also means if you flip that, 9 out of 10 can help. So we're very much grateful for the opportunity to be able to share to you guys today. And thank you so much for giving us a platform. And we'd love to explore ways we can collaborate. If you're aware of communities, other solutions and technologies that we can pilot, we'd be very much happy to discuss. And before we open the floor, I think the conversation, I'll quickly demonstrate how the filter works. So I'll just stop sharing so I can, so my screen, or at least the screen is bigger. But here, so I have, okay, I'll try my best because I disappear a bit. But so this is your 1.5 bottle of water, has turbid water in it. So it's water mixed from soil in our garden. We have pets, so I don't know if they poo and pee in there. I'm sure they do. I'll shake it up a bit. So it's gross, definitely. But this is, let me try, if I can quickly remove my background, maybe that will help. That will help me appear more. So here, this is your highly turbid water. And then the filter, as I mentioned, so there's a lot of applications to it. I'll quickly show them in a bit, but one of them is really they attach to your soda bottles. So This is how we've deployed the filter to, say, forest rangers or rangers in Masungi, for example. So they don't have to keep on carrying, a lot of water with them when they patrol. So you attach the filter on the bottle, and because it's gravity fed, you just point downwards and then squeeze. So I have a glass with me. Let me try to do this with one hand. You flip it there, and then you see the water that comes out already. What is the best view? There. You compare it. That's okay. I hope you can see, but you can see there the difference. And it's not just clear, it's potable, it's drinkable. So if you have a glass of water with you, cheers to drinking water, to clean water. So that's typically how it works. It's very easy. It's easy to use. It's easily deployable. And so that's where the innovation comes in. Sometimes we don't really make the technology. Oftentimes there's a lot of things already present. You just have to be creative in how you deploy the solution. So these solutions are actually, their initial positioning was really for camping use, but in areas that don't have safe water supply and water infrastructure, it's so easily applicable and highly easy to use for them. So quickly, I'll just show. So that was the demo. This is how it works. The kit comes in just resealable bags like this. So this is what we bring to communities. It has all the fixtures that you need to set it up in a bucket. And this is what it looks like inside. So it's similar to the membrane that's used for dialysis. So it's a hollow fiber membrane, and then U-shaped at 0.1 micron, all these bacteria and protozoa is trapped. There's different applications. So typically we have at least 5 households can share if they're clustered together. And then as long as they have a dedicated container, because you have to make sure that the water they're collecting in, or the water that the container they're collecting in is also clean. And then this is the typical setup. But we also do depots, so clean water depots. The filters also attached to your faucets. So it's the same thread as your plastic faucets. So it can easily, like you have a hand pump, can easily double as a clean water collection facility, or at least a depot. Rainwater catchment tanks. So we build them and can be communal potable water stations as well, especially during disaster response. You have multiple filters attached to it. You can also have a bigger container with filters attached, with more filters attached to it. This is your 80-liter container. On the right, you can also see there's a lot of gallon containers na nakapila in 4 filters. So this is what happened during Odette in Cebu City. You have a city of supposedly water infrastructure, but because electricity was down for like weeks, at some areas months, they didn't have refilling stations for water, which they relied on. So they relied on the filters. They're gravity fed. This house became a makeshift water refilling station. People would send them their gallons. They would just number it. And then, they would fetch water from a pozo and just continue refilling the bucket, the containers with the water that comes through the filters from the buckets. So it's very innovative in that sense that there's versatility and its different applications. And so this is really where Waves for Water, I guess is Waves for Water's strength. It's not so much in, the inventing of new technologies, but really in using what's available and creatively deploying it through logistics networks, and also looking into ways of different applications. So that's Waves for Water, and I hope I didn't overrun my time, and I think now we can open the floor to questions.
Thank you, Jenica, and congratulations. It's incredible how you put the smiles, wide smiles, on those little children in, is it in Mindoro or Palawan, right? All of them. And it's using simple membrane technology for water filters. And you're right, this is a social innovation that you have created, benefiting communities. Earlier, before we started, one of our participants, who's a UP ERDFI executive director, saying we should really push for impact on the ground. And this is what you're doing exactly. So before I ask a few questions, which is like the format of our fireside chat, Alvin and I ask a few questions and then we open it to the floor, open it, for participants to ask their questions. I just like to recognize the presence of some of our uh, people from PASE and our guests. We have our Vice President and President-elect Gladys Completo from UP Los Baños, Roel Macario. We have incoming board member Edna Co, who is working with the UN and CIFAL, and I'm glad that Edna is here today. She has a very strong interest in water. I already introduced others beforehand. Earlier, there was Gil Jacinto from Marine Science, but he had to leave because he's also in Bangkok attending a meeting. So we're very interested in this topic, as we know. And today, I'm glad that you came and joined us. And at least we know that there are efforts on the ground in regard to clean water for communities. So let me just ask a few questions. And I'm glad that you talked a bit more about the filter and the technology behind it. And I was wondering if it was just activated carbon, but you refer to a filter with a pore size that would not allow the pathogens to pass through. And so I'm so amazed that you are able to reuse this filter for many volumes of water. It seems you indicated the period that it would be useful for, but it's actually based on the volume of water that it can pass through before the filter becomes gets damaged or it's already less efficient. So I would like to know where this technology comes from. Is it German? Is it US? Is it Indian? And how much it costs? Okay, my second question is regarding the toilets and the water that is used for washing the hands. What happens to the output, the water output? How is it collected? Okay. And third is I just wanted to know how you're able to complete the value chain and get so many supporters from the private sector to support your Waves for Water initiatives. And I noticed you had a helicopter to bring you to the remote areas, and that is very, very important. So the logistics has really been figured out, from start to finish. So those are my three questions. I'm sure Alvin and our participants have many more questions that I'm also interested to ask. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks so much. So I think if I remember correctly, the first one had to do with cost, how much the filters are. So actually these kits, okay, it's hard to see, but yeah, the filters are actually very cheap when you think about it. They're just 3,000 pesos. So 3,000 is the kit with a bucket. And this is how we cost it out also in our projects. We import them from the US. So the name of the manufacturer is Sawyer. They're actually a camping equipment brand. So in the US, access to clean water is not so much of an issue, but they do like to camp. And so this is what they position as, a great filter for those who like to camp and obviously want to avoid bringing a lot of water with them when they backpack. So it's just 3,000 pesos. It lasts you, as I mentioned, 1 million gallons. So it's for a minimum of 5 years. We've had communities that have been using their same filter from Haiyan 10 years. And so the savings in terms of even just buying water, but also in terms of them avoiding getting sick and so much more is, really compounds. So it's the most cost-efficient, effective technology we believe that's out there at the moment in terms of addressing water challenges.
Second question was about the output water from the washing and from the toilet. Yes.
So from the toilet, you still have to build your typical septic tank. So it depends on what's available in terms of chamber size. But what makes it unique is that because we're piloting it now in a informal settlement community in Cavite. So they're very land scarce. It's tight quarters in there, and also a lot of light material housing. And the issue is, even if they build toilets with septic tanks, because they're using regular toilets that are pore flush, mabilis mapuno yung septic tank. So they end up not using the toilet after, because you're siphoning yung Pozo Negro. It doesn't fit the trucks that siphon out, 'di ba? Kasi you have to let your septic tanks, kailangan magpahigop. Hindi kasya yung truck dun sa community. So this allows for longer use of even a single chamber septic tank, if that's only what in terms of space constraints, what's available. So still has to do that. But the innovation is really in the actual bowl or toilet pan that they use, because it needs less water, or really minimum amount of water for flushing, but also addresses dry toilet apprehension, because as a country, we're a washing culture. We like our tabo, our bidet. So hindi uubra yung punas-punas lang. And they don't, it's not culturally acceptable, unfortunately. For the hand washing station, there is also a bucket. So there's a hose, there's an outlet underneath, and then there's a bucket that collects the gray water. So schools that have issues with their water supply use it for flushing their toilets or cleaning.
All right. So
Gray water is still collected in that sense.
there's detergent there now. Detergent.
Yeah.
So, right?
Yes,
So,
so it's just for flushing. Unfortunately, I think we'll have to use organic soap if we want to say na pwede rin siyang pangdilig, because obviously soapy water you can't use for watering your plants. And then to your last question, in terms of the value chain and logistics, because of the innovation, and I think a lot there's uptake, there's huge support because of the storytelling that we do. So we produce a lot of content, videos. We're pretty good with social media, and that helps get the message across, and also doubles as also a marketing opportunity for the companies that we support, in terms of their support for sustainability initiatives. We have a partnership with Cebu Pacific. They airlift our cargo for free. So the technology, the filters, they have a huge network of operations in the country. It's easy to transfer via airports. And government support, we worked with a medical aviation service. So they're the Philippine Adventist Medical Aviation Services. They help airlift patients from remote areas in the country in their different air bases. So it's also a lot of collaboration. We definitely don't work in a silo. We engage with anybody really who wants to engage with us, because we want to democratize the platform and for people's ability to help. And I'm a fine arts major. I had a hard time finishing my master's because there's a lot of engineering in it. But I think just being able to tailor fit messaging to different audiences really help us get the message across, and in turn garner support.
thank you so much, Jenica. It's a very, very inspiring, your story, and you're very young, and you are accomplishing a lot already on the ground. As Tito Aliga will always say, must be the level of our initiatives. Of course, there are also cross-cutting technologies that I think the government should, be in charge of. Okay, but I was just texting CP David and asking, what's the status of that division in DNR on water? No reply yet. Okay. Anyway, I'm gonna yield the floor to Alvin now for his questions.
Thank you, Giselle. Thank you very much, Jenica. Uh, we really appreciate your initiatives for the waves for water is very commendable, and your wash program is really good because you look at it in a holistic, manner. But Jenica, what is the possibility of you know, establishing like a collaboration with the technology provider in the US so that we can localize the technology here? Maybe we can engage the DOST provides from grants, or maybe Giselle the innovation grant, it will be a community based initiative, but we need to have some kind of an agreement with the technology provider if we do want to innovate on the technology, so we can bring down the cost of that 3,000 to even half of that, or even so that we can make it accessible easily accessible. And the most important is that during disasters, they are available because, our disasters, happen, yes, anytime. In Leyte, for example, where I come from, at Tacloban, we have that every now and then. We cannot predict anymore when it's going to happen. And we need this kind of technology to ensure that, when water becomes, potable water becomes a problem, we have a technology to, so, Jenica, what's the possibility in a collaborative, way you can work and facilitate, the technology provider with your organization and with our agencies of the government and the local government unit?
Definitely, we'd be happy to make the introduction and help facilitate conversation. I'm not sure to what extent the technology in the system is patented and, maybe um protected to some degree, and so they might be wary about. I'm not too sure what the mechanics are around the intellectual property of the technology. There are other filters actually that are being manufactured locally. It's just that this one is still, we've tested a couple there. There's I don't know if you've encountered the ceramic filters, or so there's some that are manufactured locally, definitely significantly cheaper. But in terms of output, so the filters have 1 liter per minute flow rate. It's not the quickest, but considering you don't need electricity or
Yeah.
batteries for it, it's it's definitely the quickest already out there, and then can be quicker if your bucket or your container is full. So we'd be happy to facilitate conversation if there's like a concrete facility that can explore. We have a great relationship with the manufacturer, the biggest importer, but that is true. There's significant cost that we actually shoulder when we bring in the filters, because it's also hard to manage and figure out inventory. Because obviously, hindi ko pwede ipang sweldo yung filters to staff. And I also have to significantly, set aside inventory in anticipation of potential disasters. So we
Mm.
definitely love to explore, and that's why we're so grateful that the toilets, the molds are being, the toilets are manufactured locally in the Philippines, because we also want to contribute to local economy. It's just that at present, the technology from Sawyer, from Florida, the manufacturer in the US, is really for us the best, most cost efficient still, despite having to import it.
Okay. Follow-up question, Giselle, before we give it to the others. Jenica, in your experience, no, what's the readiness of our community, of our, remote Filipinos to, the use of technologies? Are they now ready to, like, utilize new technologies? Are they very open to it? Or they still want the traditional ones? From your experience, can you share to us
Yeah,
how
the technology.
they welcome, technology, new technologies, in dealing with their problems at the community level?
So especially for IPs, like really in those remote areas,
Yes. Mm.
we've seen receptiveness in terms of use when you do demonstrate, like what I did kanina,
Yes.
the same
Mm.
water source they're using, madume, and
Mhm.
then you relate to them also. What do they experience when they drink dirty water? I think a lot of it has to do with communication, which we really do, because we don't just distribute the systems, we train. We, have that whole wash education module. We just try to facilitate bigger picture thinking and making them understand how everything is connected. Where they poo, where they pee will also affect the quality of their water source. So I think once they have a better understanding, or we've had an IP community that don't believe in drinking rainwater because it's like pee of the gods or something. So there's just that
Mm.
you need to correct in terms of, and make it science, science-based explanations, but they're also understandable. Even like how you explain water cycle, we have to relate it towards yung parang pag
Mm.
what do you call this? When you're cooking rice, 'di ba? Yung the different changes in water, so water vapor, ganyan. So it's really, I think, localizing, and we do have the material to teach them, and then they see the technology firsthand. We set it up, we assemble with them, we have Q&A, and then we go back to them. But what's really important is the presence of community champions. So sometimes there are also organizations who have long-term presence in these areas that can get to check and really help reinforce also the use. So definitely our goal as an organization is to be dispensable. We don't want to create a culture of dependency na kailangan kami all the time for people, you know. So it's really about us being able to transfer the technology and capacitating them. But we see that it's always a positive reception because they also see the huge difference. Like kasi they experience firsthand, sumasakit yung tiyan, nagtatae. So I think they're really able to make the connection after and see the change for themselves.
Okay. Thank you, Jenica. Giselle?
And yes, there are questions in the chat box and
Mm.
comments as well. And the first would be from VP Gladys. Ms. Jenica, does Waves for Water also advocate or help local communities establish cascade water systems, cisterns, for example, to collect and store water for use in times of need, like drought?
Yes, definitely. So often, unfortunately, they don't have just, the finances to be able to build rainwater catchments. And it really varies. So you have to have huge, roof surface areas to build significant rainwater, tanks or catchments. So what we also do is sometimes provide drums and then they can build their own makeshift kind of gutter systems. But for areas that have like a communal, permanent structure like a school or a barangay hall, we provide the material, or covered court even, we provide the materials, and then the counterpart of the community is parang their sweat equity. So the labor, the construction, they're the ones who build it, and so there's still ownership on their end, and it's not a complete, bigay lang.
So, Alvin, Jenica, PASA's role is also to connect more dots for you and for others. So, right now, Future Earth Philippines, led by one of our PASA members and our national scientist, Lourdes Cruz, has worked with the Pampanga LGUs and the DOST in that region to also address flooding and water catchment. And they already have success stories of several LGUs in Pampanga. And the focus, I understand, is also on having every major institution build water catchments, okay, in the province, in the region. And I also know of one foundation that grows organic moringa. It's called Green Earth Heritage Foundation, that has actually been helped by one of our uh, retired professors and NAST academicians. His name is Glenn Tabios. He's a hydrology engineer, and he has actually built rain catchments for Green Earth Heritage Foundation. And I also wanted to tell you, Jenica, that it also makes sense for you to focus on communities that already have livelihood with a champion like the head of Green Earth Heritage Foundation. There's already a product that is being produced by the community. I know you're trying to reach out to the poorest of the poor, to the indigenous peoples, and also to just small communities in remote areas. Okay, I'm going to read another question here from TIP. That's the Technological Institute of the Philippines. We have an MOU with the TIP, and they would like to collaborate with you, probably to produce those filters. As I see it, as I understand it as a chemist, I can see that the container can be 3D printed with recyclable polymeric material, and then we could just look for the right membranes to install in them that would be comparable to yours. Yours would be the benchmark. I know the DOST has funded many such projects on ceramic filters, and now you say they're not as sufficient as yours.
Would love to connect. I think I put my email address in the chat. So definitely would love to discuss ways that, we can help localize the technology better and make it more accessible for communities, especially also communities that those present here are already working with, because it's really in areas that, you know, there's really warmer connections that guarantee in some ways the success of the uptake also of the technology. So we'd love to explore.
So
My
to Aliga, who's with Engineering Foundation of UP, his executive director, says we will keep in touch. I can see that a community champion, a missionero, true community champion, is a key actor, and this could be an entrepreneur. And that's you, Jenica. That's Carla Delantar. And earlier, well, weeks ago, we had Ran Tihan, who's actually a pastor, a missionero, and he leads Agritectura. It's amazing how you as champions can really make the difference in communities.
Yeah, actually, thanks, Gisela.
So,
From where I sit, I think that's probably the most important actor in the general scheme of things. The guy who will make it work on the ground, and he's present there. So again, as I'm always saying, let us make national irrelevant. Let's work with the grassroots, with the missionaries on the ground. Of course, yeah, national can be relevant, but if we wait for that time, it will take forever.
That's
So
very
let's do
true.
something on the. You agree, Jenica?
Yes, no, and this is really why nonprofits like us exist. It's because, diba, the policy, it doesn't trickle down. Unfortunately, there's huge gaps
Yeah.
in the
Even if they are even if they are for profits, it should deliver benefits to the community. There's always a cost to doing all of these things, and I'm glad our colleagues from Manila Water are here. Mark, and again, Manila Water Foundation has a lot of work in the community areas outside the region. And again, thanks, Mark. Let's get in touch with Jenica, and let's make things work. It could be it could be the remote areas in the Cordilleras or in Tawi-Tawi, anywhere, and let Manila Water make a mark, etc. Thank you.
So, Tito, I'm so glad that you asked Mark to join us. And I wanted to say earlier that we should also be grateful that in the urban communities or those that are serviced by Manila Water and Maynilad, we have a good quality potable water. So, water in Manila, for example, is already been rated as a very, very high quality, and it's potable. So, in the past, we would just have to rely on bottled water and these dispensers, or we would put in our own filters. But since we received the news that the quality of the water has been analyzed and is shown to be very, very high quality, then we no longer need those extra filters. Okay, so yeah, thank you so
Okay,
much.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank
So,
you.
are there any other questions? I don't see any more. But I think it's very important to know, Jenica, that we in PAASE, we in UP ERDFI, I consider myself like, attached to UP ERDFI because I interact with them a lot. And now with the TIP, Technological Institute of the Philippines, surely De La Salle's technology groups would be there also to help you, Jenica, with your advocacy. Okay, so thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm telling you that we are featuring you and other champions in this PAASE for Philippine Innovation. And personally, as an executive member of the NIC, I'm really looking for the champions, Tito, whom we might solicit proposals from for this innovation grant that will be announced early next year.
Yeah, I don't think we need innovation grants, Giselle. It's really
More.
people like us who will want to do something in our communities.
But
We
you
don't
see,
have to innovate.
well, innovation is now on the level of social innovation. So that's one of our taglines among the executive members. This is a social innovation, and this is that community-based uptake or impact that you are referring to, Tito. So you see here, we're trying to showcase successes of
Correct.
a
Yeah.
communities, no? But we should use these successes, these stories of Jenica, and following what she's done for what Waves for Water to
Correct.
replicate,
Mm.
to get this replicated in other communities, in other provinces and regions of the country.
Yep.
Diba? From the
Thank
ground.
you. Yeah. Correct. Correct.
Sige. So
Thank
whatever
you.
it takes, no, to grow this. Well, we're not promising that you will get the, the grant because it's competitive and the funds are limited. But tulong should be open to everybody, and we're making sure, Alvin, that private HEIs are included. But then you probably have to put in a counterpart for that.
Mm.
That's also so easy for the private sector to do. Okay, so are there any more questions, comments from our audience? Some are still trying to come in now while we're ending already. Pero everyone, please know that the recording of this event is going to be available in our PAASE website, paase.org, in a few days, if not tomorrow. Yes, Alvin, I know you're in Tokyo and very busy with your
Yeah,
meetings.
well, preparing for our meeting here. But anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
it was an excellent, presentation. Thank you very much, Jenica. I mean, know many of us, we may be few here, but certainly a lot of, of our colleagues will viewing the recording of your talk, and definitely this particular information will be passed on to many of our colleagues in the provinces. So you expect maybe some emails, from, and I hope you can accommodate them, and hopefully we can initiate, Tito Giselle, we can
Ah.
initiate really some collaborative. We have to bring this really
Yeah.
to the, to the provinces.
In
We
fact,
have to
Alvin, if I may butt in,
yeah, sure.
because of the clean water that Manila Water is now providing us, we can spend the money that we used to buy for filters for our homes, and donate it to Waves for Water.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's a very simple.
I was
Again,
model.
you still spend the
Good
same
model.
amount,
Yeah.
but now it's going to a community that needs us.
Yes.
absolutely.
What Manila Water saved for us, we can give it to Waves for Water.
What's
Absolutely.
important
Diba,
if
Mark?
we
Is that
can
okay,
make
Mark?
it accessible, even more cheaper. I think that's our objective.
Yeah.
Because many of our Filipino brothers and sisters will not be able to, especially families, no, will not be able. 3,000 is not much to maybe us, no, but
Yeah.
to their ordinary Filipino, that is a huge, amount. So
Correct.
any way we can bring down that cost and make it really accessible is really our advocacy. Okay.
Thank
So
you.
there are comments and questions in the chat box, and Jenica is able to reply to several of them.
Yeah.
I'll read a few more
I did.
from Therese May Alejandrino. Very inspiring initiatives. Our community and extension services offices in the Technological Institute of the Philippines may want to communicate with you for a possible collaboration. How can they reach out to you to Waves for Water? So at the very least, Therese, please connect with PAASE, with Febes Claras, and she's directly emailing with Jenica. But I think, Jenica, you should actually type your email and cell phone number here. From Edna Ko, Professor Dizon. Well, I don't know if you are a professor, Jenica. Could you plug in the link? Yes. Could you plug in the link between planet, water, and prosperity? I think that's the one I was also driving at earlier. Sana yung community na meron ng inilalabas, may livelihood, meron ng mga produkto, particularly linking the importance and role as well as the challenges of water to 21st century industry and technology, SDG 9. Okay, so Edna is our expert on SDGs and the 5 P's of the SDGs for planet and the prosperity. No? Okay, so you replied to that already, I think. Water use, especially in big industry consumers, still being optimized. Internet of Things, yes, sensors and smart technologies that can help monitor and control water consumption and promote efficiency. So earlier, you were also monitoring KPIs, key performance indicators, and I think that such sensors, chemical sensors, air sensors, etc., could also help you in your monitoring. And we do have the technology, say in UP and LaSalle, in TIP to help you with this. We should also try to support it with homegrown technologies. All right, so feel free to get in touch with us at Jenica at wavesforwater.org or Philippines at wavesforwater.org. Okay, so she's in Instagram, soon to be in Facebook. Merry Christmas, everyone. And I hope we have a waterful, life ahead of us. Good water for everyone. Thank you so much, Jenica, and thank you all for joining us today. Merry
Thank you,
Christmas.
Jenica. Merry
This is
Christmas.
the last of our fireside chats all this year, and it's ending with a very, very wonderful presentation from a lovely lady, okay, Jenica, who's beautiful inside out because of her passion for her mission. Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Have a
Thank
good
you.
day. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Jenica. Merry Christmas, everyone. Bye, Giselle.
Al,
See you.
Al was here and then he
Yes,
left. Now he's back. I don't know. He has had no chance to ask his question. He always asks question. Anyway, next time, Al. All right, we'll leave now.
Thank you, Gladys. Bye.
Gladys, thank you so
See you
much.
tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Yes. And I also wanted to ask Gladys about the plans for the testimonial memorial for
Albano. Yes.
person to contact and to be maybe a lead organizer would be Zena Tigno. He's a research collaborator in PAASE. Zena Tigno.
Okay, I will ask, ma'am.
Oo. And Lulu Harold, no, siyempre, no? And Lisa Virata. So,
All right.
so they
I'll
know,
talk to Mario also.
and Mario, of course. No? Pero, well, we will have to ask the family, we'll have to ask Connie the date. Kasi una yung pamilya muna. We have to
Okay, okay.